The woman that we were dealing with phoned me and she said, Elaine, look, I'm really sorry. She said, but can we buy everything that you've put in the house? We've decided not to sell and we're not going to get divorced either. Estate agents started coming to me and saying, I don't want to tell my client that I can't sell their house looking like that. Could you tell them? Often it's moving rooms so that the house flows better. And people go, I didn't know my house could feel like this.
That's why you get the experts in. Hello and welcome to another episode of Fishers on the Case. This is the podcast where we talk to business owners and industry experts about their lives and their career. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Amanda Payne. I'm the host of Fishers on the Case and CEO of Fishers Solicitors based in Ashby. So today I'm very pleased to welcome Elaine Penhaul. Elaine is from Lemon and Lime Interiors. Welcome, Elaine.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So let's just talk about Lemon and Lime Interiors. How long's it been going?
So officially since June 2015,
Okay.
I was running the business probably 3 or 4 years before that under my investment business. And my accountant said to me early 2015, you've got to separate the two because the investment business and the trading business were taxed differently. So at that point, I had to make a decision. Am I going to carry on doing this or am I going to stop? And it seemed that it was getting traction in the marketplace. So 2015, we went for it properly.
Okay. And where did the home staging idea come from originally?
It wasn't really an idea, and we didn't know it was called home staging.
It didn't have a name.
No, because basically what happened was after my divorce and my now ex-husband was a property developer, I ended up with a chunk of rental properties, some commercial, some residential, and it was 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
I'd got 4 small children to feed and global crash. You couldn't sell it for love nor money. So I had to learn quite quickly how to get really good rents on my properties.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me just like common sense that if you wanted a good tenant, then you would put a lick of paint round when a tenant moved out.
Yeah.
You'd put some paint round, you'd maybe change the carpet. A lot of the kitchens and the bathrooms in the properties that I had were quite old, so gradually zhuzhed those up. And I never had void periods, so I'd got a constant stream of tenants and people on waiting lists and things.
Oh, really?
And then a friend of mine moved to Budapest with her family, and I happened to drive past her property, which they'd moved out of. They'd had tenants in for a little while, and then they wanted to sell. And I just phoned her and said, you can't possibly sell it looking like that. It looks absolutely awful.
She was a good friend.
She was a good friend.
To say that.
And it's still a very good friend. But it was like, if I tell you it was like a Sleeping Beauty house, so from the outside it had got, it was just jungle almost. And I knew it would be very similar inside. Not plants, but it hadn't been left in a great state by the tenants. So she couldn't come back, so she just said, you sort it. And that property in the winter of 2010, 2011 sold for about £60,000 more than the estate agents were prepared to list it for at that point.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And so gradually the estate agents started coming to me and saying, I don't want to tell my client that I can't sell their house looking like that. Could you tell them?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Lemon and Lime kind of grew gradually from there. And to begin with, for a lot of years actually, we referred to what we did as professional property presentation. I didn't know that the term home staging existed. I didn't realise at that point that it was a huge thing in the States already. And so it was a kind of an organic growth in a very UK version of, and much later we realised as a business that it was what the Americans term home staging, and that's actually what we refer to it now as home staging, although what we do is much more all-encompassing. Mostly because it's a Google search term. It's what people
Of course,
look for.
yes. Yeah, so you need it in there, don't you?
We need it in there.
Yeah. Very good. And you've recently launched, having franchisees, haven't you, on board as well?
Absolutely.
How's that going? That's a great way to grow, isn't it?
Well, it's a great way to
reach.
grow. And I've looked at, as the business began to grow, we started to look, like any business, at how we scaled the business.
Yeah.
And we had been very process driven from day one, because I've run businesses all my life. I'm not a big fan of paper. I'm a mathematician by background. Pieces of paper with writing on just freak me out. So I didn't really want those in the office. So we systemised the business from day one, which of course allowed us then to have a platform from which we could then grow. And then as we grew, we realised that we didn't really know how to do that and what models were possible or available or whatever.
Did you get advice on that then? Did you talk to any experts?
The problem that we had was that there was a lot of expert advice out there, but there wasn't anything that was specific to our industry.
Right.
Because the whole staging thing was so much a fledgling industry in the UK. And the US model doesn't really fit. There are some aspects that fit, but the growth model in particular doesn't really fit.
Okay.
Partly because of geography, because the geography that they're dealing with, the US stages are dealing with, could potentially be vast. But secondly, because it's a much more well-established marketing tool there. They tend to work in geographically very, very tiny areas. So, for example, I coach one stager who's based in Boston, and she told me that she literally stages 4 blocks in Boston. It's that hyper-local.
Oh, wow.
And so we started to look at different models, looked at employing, looked at a license model, looked at a kind of an associate model, looked at franchising, and began that process when I've got nothing else to do in lockdown.
Yeah.
I kind of got my bottom pinned to the chair, and I had to think about what I was going to do next. And then for 4 years, really, we tested different models. We put franchising on back burner because it was the most expensive and the most complicated of the models from a legal perspective.
Yeah.
So put that on the back burner, tested everything else. Everything else kind of didn't work as well as we wanted it to, as well as I wanted it to. They had, there were all kinds of glitches, partly to do with the industry being relatively new, partly because of the type of people it tends to attract. And in the end, we just said, no, that's it. We're going to go full on franchise model and launch that actually more or less a year ago.
Yeah.
So
how many do you have now?
So we've got 4 full time signed up.
Okay, brilliant.
Now, and we've got I can't tell you exactly today how many we've got in the pipeline, but another 3 or 4 coming through in the pipeline that we're hoping will come through by the summer this year.
But does that affect the areas where you can trade yourself from your base, or? Well, only because you've been going all over the country, haven't you?
Yeah, so we've been going nationally for premium properties.
Yes.
So the franchise model allows us to do 2 things. One, we've started franchising round the edges, as it were, places that we will quote for business but often don't win business because it's expensive to move furniture and people from a central location, so from a Midlands location. It's expensive to move furniture and people. The franchisees are building their own stock of furniture and their own little base, so little teams of people, so that they're much lighter on their feet. They can do things much more locally within an hour or so of their base, which allows them to keep costs down. Yeah. So it allows us to introduce them to agents that we've perhaps worked with, that have wanted to work with us and haven't been able to because it's too expensive. Yeah. That we're now giving them a model that's less expensive for the same quality, simply because we've cut those transport costs.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And secondly, it allows us to win some of the work in the middle market as opposed to just the very high end.
Okay.
So
yeah. Opening
we
up
get
new
a
avenues.
lot of,
yeah.
so it's opened up the market to more people, and we get a lot of interest right the way across the market. And again, we've been too expensive to service a lot of those from a logistics point of view.
Yeah. And when someone asks for your help, or an agent asks for your help, or a client directly, and you sort of go into a property, do you sort of have to gauge how much work you may have to do to make it?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
sort of try and test the water with the client to see how well they might react.
Yeah, because everything we do is aimed at getting a better sale. And by better, I mean faster than average.
Yeah.
And the aim is to achieve the guide price without any reductions. In some cases, things will go over guide, because what we're creating is desirable interiors, if you like. So that somebody will come along and fall in love, and then maybe somebody else will come along and fall in love with the same property, and then you suddenly get people competing, which kind
pushes
of keeps,
it up.
Keeps price high on it. Yeah.
So you have a big stock of sofas and beds and tables and lamps and cushions.
Dread to think. Somebody told me the other day, one of the guys working on our database, or our furniture database for me, told me last week that I've got 13,000 pieces of furniture on our inventory.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't include things like accessories, cushions.
Oh, it doesn't? Not the smaller items?
Any of the smaller items. It
wow.
That's furniture. That's scary, isn't it?
That is scary. And what do you do when those bits of furniture start to get a bit old? Do you can have a little sale, or?
Well, we've actually done quite well, because I realised very early on two things. One, that if we wanted to go for the premium end of the market, and I kind of fell into that because that's where my connections were to start with, that we needed good quality furniture. And secondly, that if we did buy cheaper furniture, things, for example, that you need to put together when they arrive, flat pack furniture, if we bought those and used those in a property, they might look great in the first property, but the more you take them on and off a van to move them, they just fall apart.
They'll lose that.
Absolutely. So we buy expensive, high quality furniture, and what that has then meant is that it's got longevity. So we've got still a lot of the pieces of furniture
you've had
that we
from
started
early
the
days.
business.
And
it also means that we can repair, we can paint, we can reupholster, and we've done a lot of that. So things look fresh, which might be trend driven, but also when things start to look a bit tired, we make sure that we're refreshing, repairing, repainting, and with the aim of being, if you like, sustainable as a business. So we're not constantly throwing things out or even having to sell them, really.
Yeah. And have you had a favourite sort of project that you've worked on? Is there anything that really stands out as being such a great success?
I think the one I loved the best was a property that the agent spoke to me about. Where are we? It must have been about 2021, let's say. And he phoned me. It's an agent I knew quite well up in Lincolnshire. And he phoned me and he said, Elaine, I've got this property to look at. The owner lives in the States. The property's currently vacant. It's vast. Will you have a look at it? And I said, yeah, that's great. I'll come up and have a look. Anyway, by the time I was due to go up and have a look, he phoned me and said, no, don't come. I've got to get pest control in first. We've got a real problem. So that was that. They got pest control in, which was so expensive that they then decided to remarket without considering the staging. Didn't get a sale on it. And he phoned me about 2 years later and said, and the property had been on the market for $1 million, more or less, in all this time.
Yeah.
And the best offer that they'd had was about 900, and the owner wasn't comfortable with that level of offer. So the agent phoned me and said, come and have a look. So I went to have a look. Oh my goodness. It's like a small stately home just outside Lincoln. So you come through the village and then you can see Lincoln Cathedral on the horizon. It's
Wow.
fantastic
Views,
setting. Stands in 4 acres, like a small stately home. You go into this entrance, which was hideous. And the whole place was just smelled like it hadn't been lived in. You know, that kind of very damp, musty, horrible. You go into the hallway. You went into the hallway where the staircase went up, and it was vast. It was like standing on a football pitch of red carpet.
Right.
Red carpet. You cannot sell red for love nor money. And the outside of this place, the stonework was all crumbling. It was all, you know, it was such a sad house. And so I said, right, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it properly, because if I half do it, you still won't get the sale.
Yeah.
So we repaired the stonework, we relaid the drive, we got the local farmer in to help with the 4 acres, so that we made that into something that looked like you could garden it or put a pony on it or whatever. We used just the hugest amount of paint, so gallons and gallons and gallons of paint on this place, to freshen it all up. We took down curtains, and the ceilings were kind of proper 3.5 metre high ceilings downstairs. And the curtains were just gross. Fortunately, we found a guy locally who recycled fabrics, so he came and collected everything because it was acres of fabric.
Yeah.
We put furniture in. Well, furniture was of a huge scale because it was being lost in there. And it went back on the market at 1.5, bearing in mind that it had come off with no offers over anything over 900. It had cost about 150 to get it to a state for remarketing. Went back on at 1.5 and got a sale pretty much straight away. So, you know, I was absolutely in love with the house. If it had been local, I would have bought it. You know, sold up and moved in. You know. But the sale on it was fantastic, and the client was a dream to work with, because basically he gave us free range. He was living abroad and just said, get on with it.
Do it.
Love what you do. We were sending photos and so on, and it worked.
Yeah, brilliant. So as a business owner and sort of a manager and supervisor, what are there some challenges that you've had to overcome with that?
I think there are always challenges. You're just glad for a day where you haven't been played up by a client, by a member of staff, by one of your vehicles, by somebody forgetting something major. Yeah. So I mean there are always challenges in running a business, which I guess is why we do it, isn't it? You know, it's the fun of it. I think the biggest challenge probably for most of us as business owners that hauled a business through COVID was keeping it. And well, it was keeping it in the first place. But then the bigger challenge that we had in coming out of it was that we were so busy that our revenue, we went into more than 50% increase in revenue in that kind of 12-month period straight after COVID. Yeah. And we just didn't have the infrastructure to deal with it. So everybody was just working flat out, dead on their feet. We'd got a lot of people who actually quite liked being furloughed and decided that, you know, it was nice being paid and
not really working.
And not working. Huge time of restructuring.
Yes.
So and we'll go through that again now with the franchising, you know, because as we're building out the franchise, we'll need to restructure the core business
as well
in a slightly different way. So we're just now looking at how we navigate that.
And how have you you touched on the fact you've got 4 children. How have you managed being able to work and be a business owner and bringing up a family? Is that
my children are very independent?
Oh, that's good. You've taught them well.
They cook.
Good.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because that whole thing about being a mother, running a business, all the different pressures that we have on us as women, business owners, as entrepreneurs. I think I love that challenge, and I think that what I have being able to do, and thankfully this wasn't my first business, so I'd kind of cut my teeth on other things first.
Yeah.
And it really did mean that my kids were very independent. I mean, I was a single mother at the point where I started this business. I was a single mother of 4 children, youngest of whom's got cystic fibrosis too, so which meant that she was in and out of hospital. So there were a lot of challenges, but basically my kids, we were just a little team,
Yeah.
and they knew if we wanted to do nice things, then the jobs had to get done first. I couldn't do everything, or at least I could, but then we didn't do nice things because I was too exhausted and cross and all the things that you are.
Yeah.
So I think it's been a challenge. Of course, it's been a challenge, but I wouldn't change that for anything. I didn't have any family in the UK. I didn't have parents or in-laws or anything that were of any help whatsoever. So we just had to get on with it.
Yeah. as women do.
As we do. Yeah. And I'm sure I shouted more often than I should have done, and I'm sure. But actually, the kids, I've got a very close relationship with all the kids now.
Yeah, that's good.
And my eldest daughter is currently working for me, covering a maternity leave for me.
Oh, right.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, what's that like, working with family? So far, so good?
So far, so good. It's interesting, isn't it? Because Rose and I were always the two that when she was much younger, we would clash. But she's an absolute dream to work with. And I think
maybe she just gets it.
Well, she gets
from
it.
hearing you
and
talk
I
about
trust
things.
Her
yes.
implicitly. There's no kind of, you haven't got to go through that bit of, does this person understand the business? Do I trust them? That's all there. Okay, this is what I need you to do. Off you go. And then she'll come back and say, well, I did it like that, but actually I think there's a better way of doing it. Can we do it like this now? Yeah, fine, off you go.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Very good, yeah.
And unexpected.
So you say you got landed with property, and mathematician was your background. What did you want to be when you left school then? Did you have any dreams and ambitions?
I think it's
obviously you've had a very interesting career from leaving school to where you are now.
I've had what these days.
Yeah.
We're allowed to refer to as a portfolio career.
Okay, yes.
What my family referred to it as was, Elaine, when are you going to stop flitting around?
Really?
When are you going to get a proper job?
Look at me now.
The answer is still, I don't know. When I left university, my first career was as an actuary, which kind of came straight out of my maths degree.
Yeah.
I think, to be perfectly honest, the only reason I became an actuary was because on the kind of milk round set of interviews coming, from university, in our kind of maths career advice groups, we were told that actuarial firms or life insurance firms that employed actuaries generally in those days, and I mean I came out of uni in 1984, so didn't offer actuarial trainee posts to women.
Because, wow, even in 1984?
Bear in mind, we'd only just had the Equality Act, hadn't we, in 1984, so it was a very, very different job landscape. But generally they didn't offer jobs to women because they just went off and had children, and the training was long and quite hard, and and so I thought, well, that's what I'm going to be then. I had no idea what an actuary was, what an actuary did, and when I got there, because I came out with 3 job offers, and, just for security really, and when I got there, I absolutely hated it because I had to sit still all day.
And look at paper.
Well, except even in those days, it was kind of early days of everything being computerised.
Oh, was it? On the old word processor?
I was working in the claims department, undoing somebody else's coding in BASIC and recoding it for changes and things that they'd made. So I was kind of, doing that whole programming thing day in, day out. I think I was absolutely rubbish at it. And the worst of it was I was working for what was Scottish Amicable in Stirling. So absolutely stunning part of the world. The office was on the M9, looked straight out over the hills,
Yeah.
and all I wanted to do was to be outside.
Yeah. Go and run
Because
out.
I'd grown up on the beach in Norfolk, and I was used to being outside. So
Yeah.
I think I was pretty rubbish at that. So
That didn't last long.
that didn't last very long. So my great career moment was when I went into the office of my boss, and clearly I was very lucky to have been there, and it was all, it's all been very difficult and all this kind of thing. And I said to him, I'm so sorry, but I'm handing him a notice. And he said, oh, and he thought that I was homesick and wanted to go home to Norfolk, and he knew that I'd been offered a job by Norwich Union at that point. He said, oh, are you going back to Norwich? I said, no, I'm going to Greece. I'm going to help set up a sailing school in Greece. And the poor man just went completely white and sat down very quickly. But I'd grown up sailing in Norfolk, and it was at the time where sailing was becoming one of those things that people could do in the summer, in the same way that they would ski in the winter. And I was very lucky to be part of that whole thing. So I stayed in Greece for 3 years then, sailing for a living.
Brilliant.
We had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Very, very different. very different. Swapped hills for sea. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Which was more me anyway. That was how I'd grown up. So So I've had a very
yes, as you say. Yeah.
Came back, taught on yachts out of Falmouth for a bit. That was fun. I didn't really know the front end from the back end of the yacht. I got very drunk at a party and said, yes, of course I can do that. Like you do when you're not very old and a bit stupid. Very briefly went into teaching when my kids were little, because the government was hurling money at maths graduates, and as they are again now, to go into teaching.
How did you find that, being a teacher?
There were bits of it I loved.
Yeah.
And bits of it that drove me insane. The bits that drove me insane was mostly the kind of the hierarchical structure around in schools, the bureaucracy, the absolute nonsense that just seemed to constrain things that you might be able to otherwise do. The national curriculum had only just come into play when I did my teacher training, so there was a lot of kind of navigating new systems and so on. In fairness to the school, the heads and senior management in the schools. Best job I actually had when I was teaching was as a supply teacher, kind of later on in my teaching career, as a supply teacher in a withdrawal unit in the middle of Birmingham. So a unit where all the kids, they were Key Stage 3 and 4, and they'd all been chucked out of every school that they'd ever been to. So it was an exclusion unit. Yeah. And they used to come in and you would frisk them for weapons as they came through the door, and a lot of them were waiting on court appearances. And the ones that could be together in a group you taught in the morning, and then the ones that couldn't be in the classroom with anybody else because they because of the problems that would occur. Yeah. You got them on a one-to-one basis in the afternoon. What was really good about it was that you felt you could make a difference. Yeah. Because some of those kids were bright. A lot of them were dyslexic and undiagnosed. And I'd got a lot of experience with dyslexia because 3 out of my 4 kids are dyslexic.
So you can recognise it.
I can recognise it from half a mile away. Yes. Pretty much. Yeah. So that was fun.
Yeah. So all those jobs and bits of career have sort of shaped you into the person that you are today, I think, haven't they? Without you sort of realising it. I think they do with everybody, don't they?
I've talked about themes, really, and I think the themes that run through everything. One is people. Yes. And being able to talk to people, being able to understand what motivates people. I went into, after my teaching career, I went into business coaching for quite a long time. Yeah. And was coaching in big corporates and public sector, particularly in police forces, bizarrely. And it equips you to talk to people about pretty much anything and everything, and to get that understanding. So now I'll go into a kitchen where somebody's trying to sell their house, and my first question is always, so tell me about the sale. Tell me why you're selling. Because what I'm then establishing is what their goals are, if you like, in a kind of a business coaching sense. Yes. What their goals are, what's important to them, what's underpinning the move. And then you can decide if what we do as a business is going to help, or whether actually it's more important for them to chop the price down to something that will get them a much quicker sale. But if they want to, we deal with a lot of people going through divorces or bereavement or relocation for work, where they need to maximise their sale, and therefore spending a little bit on the presentation will help them to do that. So it's kind of understanding all of that. And of course the numbers, I am very, very, very data driven. So we've collected data on every single house we've ever touched, right from the ones pre-business. So it allows us to do case studies, it allows us to do comparisons with national data. We're not talking, I don't really talk about interiors very much. I talk a lot about the numbers behind what we do and what difference it can make.
Have you ever done a house for somebody and then they've not moved? You ever changed anything? And then, have you? And they've thought, wow, if only we'd thought of that.
So a couple stand out really. One was up near Ashbourne, and the couple had built a house together and spent a lot of money on the build. Kitchen was stunning. It had the most beautiful, and I still remember them, German bifold doors. They were absolutely the best. You touched them and they did what they were supposed to do.
Wow, yeah.
And they had decided to divorce. So I think the build had just, put too much strain on the relationship. They decided to divorce and never quite finished the house. So they kind of put furniture down, but decided that they weren't going to finish it because they were just going to get rid of it. Anyway, so we went in, put pictures up, lots of accessories, soft furnishings. They'd mostly got furniture, but we really made it look like a home. And the woman that we were dealing with phoned me and she said, Elaine, look, I'm really sorry. She said, but can we buy everything that you've put in the house? I said, yeah, absolutely. No problem. Can I ask you why? I thought you were renting it until you sold. She says, yes, but we've decided not to sell and we're not going to get divorced either.
Oh, wow. Changed everything.
Changed everything. Yeah.
Gosh,
the first multi-million pound house
Yeah.
that we did in Leicestershire was two people. They were both consultants in the NHS, and they'd been moved down to Oxford for work. And they've got 3 teenage kids and a really big rambling house in Leicestershire. And we went and tidied up and got it all ready for sale, and the house looked like it had never looked.
Yeah.
You can imagine with 3 teenagers and very busy careers.
Yes.
And they decided not to move. They kept the house. They moved down. They did relocate to Oxfordshire, but they kept the house as kind of a family party house.
Oh, wow.
And they just used to come up and do, kind of family weekends
Yeah.
and things. Ultimately, they sold it, but it must have been 5 or 6 years later. And we helped them again at that stage.
Oh, did you?
They ultimately decided. Yeah, so it definitely happens. People fall back in love with a space when it's
amazing
when it's tidy.
what such a difference it can make, isn't it?
Yeah, when it's tidy, maybe we've decorated a little bit, maybe
Yeah.
we've changed carpets. Often it's moving rooms so that the house flows better. And people go, I didn't know my house could feel like
Yeah.
You go, well.
That's why you get the experts in, isn't it?
So, yeah. Well, it's like experts in anything,
Yes,
isn't it?
it is,
You
yeah.
wouldn't do your own conveyancing, for example, because you make mistakes. Somebody else can do it much more efficiently, much better, because that's their professional background.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I talk about it like servicing a car. You can service your car on YouTube from a video on YouTube, but you probably wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't trust myself to do that. Don't like getting my hands dirty. So then finally then, as we wrap up, is there any sort of one tip you could leave our listeners and viewers with in terms of getting their house ready for sale?
Yes, and I think that as people are thinking about getting ready for sale, prepare beforehand. It's no good waking up in the morning and thinking, oh, I'm going to sell the house. So if you prepare beforehand, it allows you to declutter so it doesn't feel, the space doesn't feel too personal. Clean, and clean again.
Really?
So that it
Cleanliness.
doesn't smell, so that it feels fresh when somebody walks in. Open all the windows if you can, so that it feels really, really super clean, because that feeling of walking into a clean, cared for space is really powerful, because the message, the subliminal messaging that it gives, is that somebody has looked after this home. Even if you don't love their decor, or even if you don't love some of the things, the furniture, for example, if it feels cared for, so there isn't a load of stuff around, the pants on the radiator, the
Kids'
the
toys
ornaments,
everywhere,
the kids' toys, the
Yeah.
dog bed in the in the hall as you walk in. If it feels clean and cared for, then the subliminal messaging there is that the sale will go through. So should you make an offer on it, then actually they care enough to help progress the sale.
Okay, so you're touching the emotional side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And giving that messaging that somebody cares about you as the buyer enough to tidy up, clean. And it's so interesting how often that's just not done, the very, very basics.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us today. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for having me.